Good afternoon, everyone. 4:30 on a Manolo Lunes Man Up Monday edition of Middays with Q. As first and foremost, we hope everyone is having a wonderful Memorial Day weekend. First and foremost, and as always, I'm your host, Rich Quinones. A little shortened version on this Memorial Day Monday, a very busy Memorial Day weekend, but appreciate everyone keeping us tuned in as you guys typically do. You can get in on the conversation. You can just comment below on our channel and during the show. And I will say this, there was some talk. I guess it was on Friday's show. There was talk. That's what they say. Isn't that what we say sometimes, right? We say there's chatter. There's been chatter, right? And there was chatter on Friday's show that you guys thought maybe I was panicking a little bit when it came to my Knicks. Now, I will say this to start the show. I will say this because I know where we're going to go with this. There was a lot of talk about perhaps getting rid of the Death Star mic. There was some talk about, banning some comments late in the show, i.e., you know exactly who you are. You know exactly who you are. But I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to do that because I decided ultimately if the Knicks were going to do something and make this a series, they were going to go out on the road and win game 3 in Indiana. And that's exactly what my Knicks, the Knicks that I told you we're not done, the Knicks that I told you we're not left for dead, we're going to do it. Last night down 20, they rally behind Karl-Anthony Towns with 24. Jalen Brunson in foul trouble pretty much the entire game. Had his moments, but the bench, the role players stepped up. The Knicks cracked down defensively. Bridges had a big game. OG had a big game. Brunson, a quiet 23. Mitchell Robinson, he got the start. Thibodeau threw him on the floor. He had 6, but he gave him some effort. And the Knicks found a way to win a game that, again, let's be honest, they probably had no business winning. They probably had no business winning that game last night, 106, 101, 106, 100 over Indiana. But listen, they responded. They rebounded. And that's all you can hope for if you're a Knicks fan, because I told you this. Not only after game 1, when they blew that horrible lead, 17-14, then 9 late, I thought the series was over. After they lost game 2, I was convinced. I came on the air and pretty much said they're going to get swept. I kind of said that after game 1, especially if they didn't win game 2. That's kind of where I was at. I said they were going to get swept. But what did they do? Last night, they responded, and that's what good teams do. I don't know if the Knicks are going to win this series. I don't. But now it's a series. You lose the first 2 at home. You go on the road in a place you haven't won in 20-something odd years, even though, granted, it's only been like 8 or 9 tries in the playoffs. It's not like Larry Brown and those Pacers at the House of Horrors back in the day, Madison Square Garden. But the Knicks found a way to win a game. And Karl-Anthony Towns, as much as he frustrates the hell out of me sometimes, always chucking it up from beyond the arc, he played well. He took over last night. He took over the game at critical points of the game. He only played 28 minutes, but the 20 points were big. The 7 rebounds were big, knocking down the shots from the, a couple of threes and doing a good job as a collective unit from beyond the arc. I mean, 35% not bad, and then 86% from the line. That was a nice win last night by the New York Knicks. That was a really, really impressive win. That was a gut check win. And by the way, I don't want to shortchange Karl-Anthony Towns. He had 24 last night. But again, on the floor +6. Bridges gave him high energy in 37 minutes. Josh Hart as well. Josh Hart came off the bench, but he had a couple of big rebounds late in the game. And now we have a series. especially if you're a Knicks fan. I thought the series was done. I feel as though there's not a lot of juice or buzz with this Eastern Conference final and the Western Conference final, which you just knew that Minnesota was going to come back and throw everything at OKC. They were going to throw absolutely everything at OKC because they could have ill afford to go down 3-0. And man, I mean, from the get go, they absolutely whitewashed them. They put up a buck 43, 143 to 101. SGA, again, you're not going to burn them out when you're losing by 30 something odd points, finishes with 14, but it was Edwards doing all the damage for the TWolves. And that now is a series. That now is a series with game 4 tonight. OKC on the road, mind you, is laying 3.5. But I still feel, though, there's not a lot of buzz. There's not a lot of buzz with these series, respectively. And I thought there was going to be a little more juice with these playoffs. And we just haven't seen it. That's just been the bottom line. We just haven't seen it. All right, we're just cranking up on a Monday edition of Middays with Q's. We like to say a little Lunas Manolo Man Up Monday, powered by our good friends over at Fresh Roasted Coffee. I know it's Memorial Day weekend. We understand it's the holidays. Again, first and foremost, special thanks to all the servicemen and women. If you have coffee drinkers in your family, you use the promo code below, 20% off your first purchase of BYP. 20, use that promo code, 20% off your first purchase for a fresh roasted coffee. I'll get into the comments in a moment. I also thought last night, Halliburton is so hit or miss. Is he not? He is so hit or miss. I mean, you watch him play, and sometimes he can light it up. And I didn't think he played particularly well yesterday. I really didn't. The box score is going to show that he had 20 points. But other than that, had a couple of bad shot selections late, couple bad turnovers. Siakam didn't have the type of game 2 that we saw yesterday. Game 2, he was absolutely man-possessed. I mean, an absolute man-possessed. He absolutely torched the Knicks for 39 in game 2. He was the bulk of the offense. Yesterday, they did a good job when they had the double switch, when they put Robinson on him, when they put OG on him, when they tried to body him up. At times, you even saw Cat slide over for weak side help. They did a really good job against Siakam. And they held Indiana in check from beyond the arc, just 5 of 25. The numbers I gave you before, again, I apologize. That was from game 2. Indiana still went to the line 33 times. But I still believe offensively, the Knicks, their offense is very, at times, it's one-dimensional. It's, either Towns putting the ball on the floor or shooting it from beyond the arc. It's Brunson, milking down the shot clock. I know they brought that up a couple times last night. They need to get into a little more of a groove, a little more synergy when it comes to their offensive sets. But Thibodeau pulled the right, he pulled the right strings. I mean, Robinson didn't have a hand like a lot of people thought he was going to have a hand in the game. But again, he pulled all the right strings. He pulled all the right strings. So we will definitely get into that. The Indy 500 over the weekend. I just saw this too. Caitlin Clark suffered a tough injury. I mean, she's going to miss the next 2 weeks, left quad strain. That's what the Fever announced. We'll talk a little more WNBA tomorrow. We'll mix in a little baseball. Also, Aaron Rodgers. We're still waiting to see what's going to go on with Aaron Rodgers. We're still going to wait and see. Your guess is as good as mine. By the way, I mentioned, which was really interesting. And by the way, if you hear noise in the background, that is the dog trying to get settled in on Memorial Day weekend. You give her the chew toys, you give her the bones, you give her the treats, but yet she wants to just make a little noise in the background. So we have to fight through that, as we like to say. But I mentioned this on Friday's show when I was talking about the Knicks and the type of offense that they run. Sometimes it's not aesthetically pleasing on the eyes. It's just not. You and I both know that. And what's really interested in that, Thibodeau, they, the TNT crew kind of they took a pretty bad shot at Thibodeau last night, right? The Knicks are down 58-45 at the half. Kenny Smith basically said, hey, You have to go deep into your rotation, right? He wanted to play 9 guys in a baseball game. They took a shot at him. And this is what they did. He turns around, and what does Thibodeau do? He made adjustments. He went deep into the bench. Deion Wright, Landry Shamet, these guys, you got to dust them off. They're seldomly used, right? Because now you got stars in foul trouble. Cat, foul trouble. Hart, foul trouble. Jalen Brunson in foul trouble. So I have to figure out a way to, get the best out of my bench. Now, they were not the biggest contributions. I think Wright had 2 points in 13 minutes. Shaman had 3 points in 11 minutes. But here's the thing. You felt what they were able to contribute on the defensive side. And that's what you needed. You're talking about Shaman, who was a game high plus 12 in 11 minutes, with Towns pretty much dominating the offensive side of the floor for the Knicks last night. They're down 20 in the first half. They're down 20. They were on the verge of getting blown out. And then, and Reggie Miller, who I can't stand, brought up a really good point on the air. Again, a really good point on the air. He mentioned that last little burst, that last little run, and the late 5-point flurry that got him into a little bit of striking distance and some momentum going in to the locker room. Man chimes in, avoided the full Vince jinx. I did. And Vince is nowhere to be found, and that's fine. That's fine. I don't have a problem with that. You want to call me out. You want to ruin the flow and the juju of the show on a Friday. It was supposed to be a What the Frig Friday edition of Middays with Q. You decide you're going to come up with those comments on Friday's show as we close, and not only kibosh me, the Death Star Mike, and my Knicks after I went a full-blown panic mode and basically declared this series over and it was going to be a sweep. I was just testing you guys. I was testing you to make sure you were listening. That's number one. Number two, to not even show up. To not even show up on a Manolo Lunes Man Up Monday edition of Middays is just absolutely gutless by Vince. And I don't know right now. We might need a ruling on this on Tuesday. Maybe he'll peekaboo. He'll peek his head out. I bet when his Steelers sign Aaron Rodgers, he's going to peek his head through the waters. But the Knicks made adjustments last night. And that's the NBA. The Knicks made adjustments. And as far as the bunker boys are concerned, they take a walk. We don't need any of that, man. We don't need that kind of nonsense. We don't need. What happens is you get guys that tune into the show. They want to put the mush. They want to proclaim games done when the games are still being on. I don't need that kind of nonsense in my life. I don't. They better worry about their Eagles, and I'll just leave it at that. Sarge in Delaware chiming in. Q, happy Memorial Day to you and for all the servicemen and women out there. We know, let's be honest, Q, we know you were sweating up a storm, not only on Friday night, but yesterday. You knew if the Knicks went down 3-0, they were going to get swept. But to their credit, they did rebound. I'm still not a fan of Tibbs, but I thought Cat played outstanding. Have a good Monday, my man. Sarge, I appreciate you. And, of course, you were in the military, so happy Memorial Day. What do we got here? G in North Jersey chiming in. Q, that was a big-time win for the Knicks. I mean, historically, you look over the last 25, 30 years, old Knick teams are not winning that type of game. They did it with guts. They did it with heart. Thibodeau finally made some moves, and Cat woke up. P.S. I still hate the fact that he chucks up threes. I agree. That's a game that the Knicks don't win 15, 20 years ago. It's a different NBA, and it's a different makeup. It is. I mean, you got... what is it, 17, 5? You got 22 points from the bench. They got 22 from the bench. Indiana's bench is actually really solid. I can't stand TJ McConnell. Every time this kid's on the floor, he just makes the right basketball play. If the Knicks are going to win this series, they need to keep it right around $110. They can't have their offense. I don't care about Brunson and him going off. Their offense is not built for 125-30. Game one was an aberration because the game went into overtime and it got absolutely goofy late. You're not winning a game. You're not winning a playoff game when you give up 138 points. You're not. And they should have won game two, and they were very close. I mean, they're lucky they won last night. Now, if you want to make the case they should have won game one, then you're still looking at they're down 2-1. They could be down 0-3. They could be up 3-0. But that's basketball. That's basketball. So what they did is they took home court advantage back. And that's what they needed to do. And I don't know why. Listen, the refereeing is horrible, but tomorrow night, Brunson's going to be aggressive. Cat's going to be aggressive. OG Hart's going to be aggressive. You just hope that it's not really loose with the whistle. Indiana laying 1.5. And some of the calls were ridiculous last night, going both ways. Monday Marcus chiming in Newcastle, Delaware. Q, it is amazing to think there are no more home court advantages in the NBA. I heard them mention this on the broadcast. Maybe you can verify. The Knicks are a much better road team than they are at home, and Indiana stinks when it comes to the playoffs at home. Have a good Memorial Day. Monday Marcus, appreciate it. Yeah, there aren't. I mean, if you look at the trends, the Knicks are a better road team. The Knicks have always played better on the road in the playoffs. In their history. I don't know. I mean, as much as they've had some really great moments in Madison Square Garden, they have had some very, very bad moments as well. They really have. So they're back in the series. And if you're a Knicks fan, that's all you can really much ask for. I'm just waiting to see. Brunson has to have that clean 35-point type of game. You're keeping him on the bench because he's getting in foul trouble. You're hoping that he can get hot late. That's one of the reasons you got to go deep into the bench. But this series now is interesting as opposed to the Knicks being down 3-0 and staring down the barrel of getting swept. As far as the Western Conference, the Western Conference Finals, there's no juice to that as well. There really isn't. I mean, I'll watch. That's an 8:30 tip-off tonight. I'll watch OKC laying 3.5. I want to see SGA. I want to see Edwards. I just didn't think Minnesota matched up well against OKC. I just really didn't. When you break it down, I mean, listen, Edwards had, 42, and if you think about it, and Kiki's getting excited too, Edwards had 42. If you think about it, OKC has to figure out a way. All right, how do we slow him down? Right? Because in that Denver series, as good as they defended Jokic at times, he still had a pair of 40-point games. So now you're playing against really solid players and you're not able to hold them down. And that's the problem. So, obviously, you're talking about Minnesota, the scope of the offense, it runs through Edwards. And I also think, you can't have these guys labor through these games. You just can't. And when you want to be a great player, you got to lead and you have to have other guys follow suit and you have to elevate or at least help elevate their games. And when he sizes up his man and he starts to, weigh his options, he gets the ball and he's got the green light and he's going downhill, he can really do some damage. He really can. And I just think, again, he's not settling for some of these jumpers. He's waiting for the double team to arrive. Then he's making the right basketball decision. That's a smart, sound player. Now, are you going to play him straight up? I mean, if you're looking to do that, okay. You play him straight up, that's fine. You got Dort, they had that little encounter, and maybe you weave them in, you throw in Caruso as well. I would try to get Edwards to get rid of the rock. I would try to force him to pass. So, there's a difference between forcing a guy like Joker or Luka. You got Joker's more skilled, and then he gets his teammates involved and their confidence up. And then sometimes that's the worst option for defense. So I look for this to be a competitive game going into the fourth quarter, and you got to keep them attacking from the rim. If they do that, they're going to be successful. They're going to be very successful tonight. They're going to have an opportunity to win. So you got the NBA, Western Conference, Eastern Conference Finals. I know we're going to get out of here in a couple moments, but I just wanted to come on and talk a little bit about the Knicks win. Baseball-wise, we'll get into that a little more Tomorrow, right now, O's up top on the Cardinals 5-2. Blue Jays doubling up the Rangers 2-1. Scoreless, White Sox, Mets. Reds right now, end of 3, blank in Kansas City. You've got the Marlins and the Pods. The Rockies lost again. Go figure. This is baseball. And when did they snap that horrible slide? They beat the Yankees. They lost 2 out of 3 of the Yanks, but they actually won a game 3-2. And their offense has sputtered. Right now, they sit at 9-45. If you're thinking about leaning them right now and tailing them because of their losing streak, have at it. Go have fun with it. NFL, we'll get into that more tomorrow, right around 4 for a Tuesday edition of Middays with Q. And then later on in the week, Lloyd Vance is going to join me on BYP. The Rodgers situation, it is what it is. It's kind of a fluid situation. It's just a question of when and how much longer the Pittsburgh Steelers will wait to vie for the services of one Aaron Rodgers. All right, fast approaching 5 o'clock. I've got to do a remote hoops broadcast in about an hour. So we wanted to give you about a 15, 20-minute kind of short version of a Monday edition of Middays with Q. I got to call the game 7 o'clock, my time, our time, 4 p.m. on the West Coast for some basketball as well. So we'll get into a lot of the hoops tomorrow, a lot more of the NFL, some off-season stuff. Lloyd Man's going to join me back in the saddle later on in the week. Everyone have a good Monday, Memorial Day weekend, Memorial Day Monday. And for those that were, getting on me on a Friday edition of Middays with QA, What the Frig Friday, I hope to hear from you tomorrow because I didn't hear from you from a Man Up Manolo Lunis edition of Middays with Q. As always, we're powered by our good friends over at Fresh Roasted Coffee. Check the show notes, BYP20. That's 20% off your first purchase of Fresh Roasted Coffee. Tuesday and Thursday, will we be back in the saddle in the studios of Tri-X 57. And then, of course, right here on remote, Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, we'll go extended 4 to 6. But like I said, a little taste on this Memorial Day weekend. Enjoy the basketball. Enjoy the baseball. As always, special thanks to our servicemen and women. Have a wonderful Sports Monday. Enjoy your Memorial Day. Be safe, be sound. We'll do it again tomorrow on a Tuesday edition of Middays with Q, powered by our good friends over at Fresh Roasted Coffee. Until then, hasta luego, un día.